And it sends chills through my spine because I just think people need to hear that. I think they need to wake the fuck up and realize that you are not meant to be a carbon copy of everyone else, and you're not meant to do as others do. You're meant to do as you do. You're meant to have your own thoughts. You're meant to think critically. And I don't care what school taught you. I don't care what everyone else is doing. What I care about is what you do and what you want to do and what's in your heart. And I don't care if people don't like it, and I don't care if they don't like you, and you shouldn't either, because it doesn't fucking matter. This is Way of the Artist with Brandon Colby Cook and Evan Schulte.
Identifying your blocks and demystifying your struggles
so that you can claim your own path
and make your life a work of art.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Hope everybody is doing okay out there in the world. We all need a place to vent. Isn't that right, Brandon? We all need a way to get, all of that stuff that's inside of us, a place to go, or sometimes even just a place to creatively check out during these trying times all over the globe. And this is my kind of half-assed lame attempt at doing a segue into our topic today. But you know what? It's a great way for finding your way back to art. And I think that, at the start of like the pandemic, I don't really want to talk about it too much, but I just want to touch on it for now. But at the start of it, lots of people started picking up, like little art. People were in lockdown, started doing creative things. I think that people are starting to fall away from that, because things have, sort of reopened up for people, or, things kind of get pushed to the side as they often do. But, I think that for other reasons now, and, this is something that I think that happens a lot, is people have some sort of creative outlet, some sort of art that, whether you're a professional or just an enthusiast or just a hobbyist or a person who likes to dabble in a lot of different things, sometimes we don't create time for that. Sometimes we don't give it space. And this conversation is really about making a case for, finding your way back to some art, to creating some things, why that's a really good idea. I mean, I think that a lot of people in general will say it's like, no, like it's good, to be involved in an art. It seems like an obvious thing, but we're just going to make an even extra case for it. Like, hey, really start getting back into this stuff. And this is as much a reminder for, ourselves as it is for everybody else. So Brandon, you got something to add to that?
I would also add that having a hobby is really valuable. I mean, I think a lot of artistic expression can come out of having something that you're interested in or passionate about, something that, I don't know, like something where you feel like you can put yourself into and get something positive out of yourself. And I think also what's really important about a hobby is that you do something for the sake of enjoying doing it. There's a certain amount of play in there. I think play is really important. I might even add that kind of to the importance of this discussion, because I mean, life can be stressful, and we can get anxious, and we can get scared, and we can get angry, and all of these things. And that's not to say that none of those emotions are valid, because I think a lot of them are. And I think sometimes misdirected, I think sometimes confused, but it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have those emotions. And I think also that, you don't want to let that stuff dominate your life. I don't think you want to let anxiousness and stress and fear and anger and all of that stuff be like what your life becomes all about. And also, I think it's really, really important that we never let ourselves get so mechanical about life that we behave like drones or robots, or like just these kind of mindless machines that just wake up in the morning and go to a job or do something productive, because you're just so much more than being productive. And not to say that being productive isn't a good thing, because it is. It has its place. Passion and art and creativity and even hobby and play, these things are really, really important for finding purpose and like life force, which I think what we're kind of trying to advocate the idea of, like, what's your life force? Like, come back to your life force. And we might call it art, we might call it creativity, but hey, what's your life force? What makes you you? What's the thing that is inside of you that wants out, that wants expression, that wants attention? Give it attention. And I think almost even more so in stressful, anxious times. I think also when you have that, I mean, one last thing I'll say about that is I think when you have a life force activity, a life force focus, you actually begin to reconnect to your humanity, your fellow man, your fellow woman, your whatever you want to call it, because you begin to realize what life is all about. Life is not about us being machines, being productive, getting stuff done. It's not about that, really. I mean, yes, those are important, valid things, but that's not really what life is about. Life is about being a human being with all sorts of incredible stuff inside of you and finding out what you can do with that, and you don't need to be so small that all you do is just do a bunch of tasks and go back to sleep. So that's kind of what I would say. And I think it all relates. I mean, finding your way back to your art in a lot of ways is finding your way back to yourself. It's finding your way back to your life force. It's finding your way back to your child, your inner child. It's just come back to that. Don't take life so serious, even if it is very serious, even if you're in the middle of war, there's still a human being inside of there. You don't just have to soldier on. You don't just have to be a machine. You can take some time out of the day just for you, just for you, and give it some space. I think it's really important. I think it's healing, and I think it's necessary. So I actually added a lot more than I thought it would.
Well, it was a great addition. Yeah, I think that what was the word that you had used? Oh, yeah, like or the phrase, I guess. It's what's inside of yourself, getting in touch like with yourself. I think that is that's one of the things that art, I think when you're really engaged with art with the right mindset, that's what it does, is that I think great art is kind of a surprise. There's this element of surprise, which is, I think, a really essential element to art and its importance, especially when, we live in, our lifestyles have become increasingly kind of automated, and we have a great deal of things to distract ourselves with. Art is this thing that kind of occupies this space of other. It puts you into an other space. There's no, I mean, yeah, you can phone art in. Certainly you can phone it in, but then, that's you're missing out on the real sort of fruits and the vitality that it has to offer, no matter what, your interest is with it, whether you're interested in going somewhere with it or pursuing it as a profession, or if it's just something that you do every, Wednesday night or something like that. You pick it up, and art can take you to a place of that essential element of surprise, because it sneaks up on you. Even earlier today, I was just picking up, my guitar, and this was actually part of what sparked this conversation, for all of you listeners, was, as some people might know, I played guitar for, oh God, I guess probably like over 20 years now. And it's one of these things where it's like, sometimes like I'm playing a lot, and at times I don't even pick the instrument up for a long time. And I'm just kind of coming out of a space of time where it's like, oh, I haven't really been playing guitar much at all. And having that sense of and coming back to it and understanding, it's like, oh yeah, like I've been missing this. I haven't been creating the time and space to do this. And sometimes it's a specific thing. For me, it was just like, oh, I want to learn how to play this song that I've been wanting to learn for such a long time. But it leads from one thing to the next thing, and I just sent a recording to our mutual friend Ash not long ago, because it's like, oh, this is kind of a neat little thing that just came out, that a sound, a couple of chords, a little sort of riff that I was like, oh, this is pretty. And it wasn't something that I had intended on happening. It just kind of came with me playing some songs that I knew, and then stumbling across something that I was like, oh, that sounds really quite lovely, and seeing where it would take me. And it turned into this lovely little thing, and who knows, we might actually do something with it, and see if we can turn it into a little song or something. But that's how, I think that's the beautiful part of art and creativity, is that it has those sorts of moments that just kind of delight you in a way, and you see, it's like, oh, here's something that just kind of came out of me, and I didn't know that was there. And art can really just connect us to who the person we are is.
Totally. I love that. Music is such a fascinating thing to me, because personally, I'm not all that musically inclined, at least like, I don't have the skill set with a lot of these instruments and stuff. A little bit of guitar, which I played around with and had some cool moments. But well, actually, I was hanging out with Ash a lot before, and he has a electronic music machine, which is pretty good for me, because with something like that, I know how to control electronics enough. I understand music enough to be able to find sound and like find flow. But with an electronic machine, it's kind of nice because I can access an instrument that I don't necessarily know how to play, but I can kind of coordinate it. And I think from my years as a filmmaker and kind of leading and organizing different departments and things like that, it's given me a skill of being able to kind of oversee something. So like, almost like orchestrate. And with this electronic machine, we've done some really fun things together where we're just hanging out and we're finding the music. And it's really neat because we'll take turns. One of us will operate the machine, and the other one will kind of sit back and kind of enjoy it. And it's interesting because you do kind of discover it as you let yourself play. Somebody who everything is actually quite new, like I don't have a lot of experience with it. It's kind of like being a kid with a toy. You just all of a sudden you discover a sound and go, oh, that's really cool. But I actually found that he's very musically inclined and has a lot of experience, but even for him, he has the same experience. And my almost like newness to it, I found kind of gives him some inspiration to find newness in something that he's quite familiar with. But his familiarity gives me a certain level of guidance so that I can kind of direct my discoveries a little bit better, because he'll be like, well, you could try doing this, with that sound, or you could add this one in. And that's really cool to me. Like music is such a fascinating exploration. And I think that, something about art, like just that's coming up for me, is that your art doesn't always have to know where it's going. It's just about sometimes just venturing out into it, and going like, let me try. I think play is such an important element to it, is like, because when you really lose yourself, like what we talked about last week about like disappearing into your art, when you're discovering and you're like really just kind of finding it, you literally disappear, and it doesn't really matter. All that matters and all that is reality in that moment when you're fully doing it is the music, which I find to be an absolutely fascinating thing from a creative side. Like you literally just, the music is all that seems to exist for even a brief moment, but it almost feels like an eternity. And then when it's done, you know, when you're done with it, you're like, wow, that was so great. That was so fulfilling. You just like have such a like a full cup of life inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing that you touched on there, sort of implicitly in what you were saying, is another weird little benefit to having some sort of art that you are committed on some level to just doing for its own sake, and that is, there's this sense of connection, and that comes through just doing the work itself, and that kind of creativity, but the connection that you form with others as well, people who share in a passion like that. I know it's still more challenging these days to kind of have that same sense of community, but if you've got somebody that you can go and jam with, someone that you can go and paint with, someone that you can go and like my wife has been doing pottery for the last number of years, and it's part of the joy of it is in that community, in having those people that you are creating stuff with, and you're seeing what they're doing and they're seeing what you're doing. And some people have more experience, some people have less experience, and everyone's sharing in this art. Everyone is sharing and growing in this craft. That's just, everyone's there simply for the joy of doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like, and pottery is an interesting one because there is something that's extremely practical about it. You can make bowls and plates and cups and things that you need, but nobody's really there because it's like, oh, I need a new plate set. That's not why somebody goes and learns pottery. It's like, hey, look, if you just need a new set of plates, you can, it's far easier for you to just go and buy a set than to learn how to do pottery and do that. Like, that's a cool thing to work towards as far as, but that's again, it's not the reason why someone's there. That's not the reason why someone's taking that. It's there to nurture a curiosity. It's there to nurture some sort of creative spark that's in you that wants to see something happen. And again, pottery is an interesting one because like it is almost like magic. Like if you never watched like a great potter, like go on YouTube and watch somebody throw something on the wheel and create some sort of whatever the hell they're making on it, a pot, a cup, a vase, there's so many different things, but just like watch somebody do that. And it is like magic. Like you're just watching something take shape in front of your eyes, and watch the level of focus and attention that potter has, where it's just this thing that's happening, like there's such a deep level of attention that's going on there. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that necessarily, but it's, take it away, Brandon.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like what you're talking about. Watching your art form before your eyes, and and also I think something that's coming up for me actually as you're talking about is kind of like the law of appreciation, in art, where art is sometimes, it doesn't always have to be you doing the art yourself. Sometimes it can be appreciation. I was thinking about like watching this person put this pottery together and how you're appreciating that and watching the magic of that. It's not much unlike going to a concert and watching musicians play great music, or just Ash and I hanging out and both of us watching each other try to find music. That's as much a part of it as the actual doing it. I think, I think a little of both is important. I think maybe finding your way back to your art isn't just about you finding your way back to your art. So like, what am I creating? But like, what are others creating? What am I interested in? What do I want to see, develop? And another thought that was coming up for me as you were talking would be, even before you even mentioned the pottery thing, was I was thinking about, us and our journey together as artists, and we wrote scripts together. And I've told people about our process, and I've had writers like ask me, will you do that with me? Because when I told them about how we did it, they were like, they were just so enamored by it. Like they thought it was such a cool process that we like our process, just to give people an idea, was we would get together and we'd write everything together. That was kind of our thing.
Yeah.
I've written in different ways with other writers, but with you, we always did it where we got together and we sat down and we talked and we worked through the script together. And sometimes we would stand up and act out the scene. We would, not act it out, but physically try and make it make sense in our minds and our bodies. And we would really explore it. And it was a slower process as far as productivity, but also it garnered a lot of the time better results because we were very patient. And when one of us came up with something that was maybe a little bit cliche, we had the other kind of be like, well, I think there's a little bit of like, it's not really like it's, we would challenge it. We would challenge each other's ideas. And that really created a lot of learning for me. I attribute a lot of our writing to something that really helped me flourish as a screenwriter later, because when you're off on your own as a writer and you're not sharing your creative process with someone, your own tripe ideas or cliche concepts of stuff, they don't get checked, at least not until you're done a draft. But with you and I, whenever we wrote a first draft, it was really more like a third or fifth draft because we had so many editing moments. But the amazing thing about it was the way we worked together, at least in my experience, was not like, it wasn't like there was an editor in the room. The editor was like a creative addition in our process. Like we weren't being critical of each other. We were just trying to push the bar up on each other's level. Like let's just raise the bar a little bit. Yeah. So, I mean, those days of us writing scripts together, like I love the days where we got together and wrote and worked on our scripts together. Not only did we connect as friends and get to talk about art, but like I learned a lot. It was great to be able to connect with someone about it. One other thing I'll share, Evan, is like, I just remember this. Remember we had the crazy chair? The crazy chair for our audience was someone was writing, but the other person was sitting on the chair that wasn't writing. And we called it the crazy chair because you don't have control of the words of the keyboard, but like you're like a backseat driver.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you a little crazy, but at the same time, it was kind of a funny thing. And we just kind of called it like, who's in the crazy chair right now and who's writing?
Yeah. Yeah.
It just reminds me of these funny little things that happen as you kind of just put time and effort and energy into your art, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I forgot about the crazy chair. It was interesting too, because when you were talking about, how when I explained our process to other people, and I was just thinking, what was our process? But then I'm glad you recapped it, because it's like, oh yeah, that's about what it was. But yeah, it's like when you have people coming together for a common passion, and especially when that passion is, like there's a lot of different passions that bring people together, and sometimes it's something like a cause, or trying to some form of activism or something like that. But there's something about art that, still it occupies this other space. And something I want to bring in here, which was, you had mentioned this before we started recording, and I really wanted to bring it back up into this conversation, because it's something that I totally agreed with you when you said it, which was essentially like you were drawing this connection between art and celebration, which I just love that. And in fact, I have a blog article that's been like rattling around in my head for probably about a year now that I've been wanting to write, called acting as a celebration. or as sort of a working title. But the whole essence of it being like, this question of, why do we act? Why do actors act, and why do artists art? Why do we do it? And there's a lot of different answers, and I don't want to say affirmatively that there is only one answer with this at all, because everyone has something. But I think that there is celebration might be some kind of a unifying thing that we can, I don't know, not grab onto, but there's something to that for me. And I base that sort of off of, I think it's something that I heard in an Alan Watts talk once upon a time, just to bring the man back into the room here. But it was some talk where he, at some moment, he was speaking to how life is a celebration of itself. And that struck me as, being someone who's an actor and who teaches acting. And I thought, it was like, well, acting has long been said is a reflection of life. And many things that are true in life are true in acting. There's so many parallels, because acting deals so directly with the human experience and what it is to be human, what it is to be alive. So there's things that are so that parallel each other so closely, and I kind of took that on and thought, just like, well, if acting is the same as life in this instant, then acting is also a celebration of itself, which is a celebration of life. And every time we get up and we're doing it, we are celebrating it. We are celebrating, the whole human experience. We are celebrating the fact that we are somehow fucking here, which defies all logic. You know what I mean? And what does that mean? What does that mean for us? But ultimately, like, celebration I think is one of the most beautiful things that we have. And, art is in many ways an invitation to celebrate.
It is an invitation to celebrate. I got tongue-tied. It'll happen now and then. It is a celebration. Yeah, something I think about a lot is how, if you were in just pure survival mode, you wouldn't really have time for leisure. You wouldn't have time for art. You wouldn't have room to take a moment, to even to meditate, to just breathe, right? And I think that when you take a moment with your art, you're saying, I'm taking a moment to breathe. I'm taking a moment to live, to celebrate the fact, because like if you look at most movies, for example, I skipped thought there, but if you look at most movies, they're about the struggle in life. They're about the challenges we face. They're, plays like this, they're about these social challenges and stuff like that. And when you're in those, they're very all-consuming, especially when it's high stakes and heightened kind of part. But art, what it does is it kind of allows you, like, if you think about it, like, you're taking a moment to reflect on that. It's very meditative of life, because really what you're doing is you're reenacting like life. And whether that life has happened in actuality or not, there's a truth that gets carried in art. And I mean, just this is more filmmaking or music or painting or whatever else you want to throw in there. There's this kind of truth that gets carried with it. And that truth is a meditative reflection upon what it is to be alive, what it is to be human, what it is to be good, bad, what it is to have fault, to overcome. And I think that when an artist is truly dialed in to their own like authentic vision, their own values, when they're really like in line with what they want to celebrate in the world, they pick better work. They, even if the work is a collaboration, they don't just do things that are like to make a buck, because that's not, like, in a sense, that's a robbery of what art is. You know, art is not about being a machine. It's not about, like, we've made an industry, we made business out of art. But I think the real artists, the people particularly who have healthier kind of like our longevity in their creative careers, the people who actually make stuff of meaning and impact, they choose their work well, and they choose it for reasons that are not always so obvious to everyone else. Like, I remember when we met Rob Reiner down in Los Angeles, and we got to kind of go to his talk, and I had the good fortune of being able to ask him some direct questions and talk with him, which I really was one of the most memorable moments of my life. But I remember him talking about how he got Spinal Tap made, and how it was just something that he just really believed in. And he was really trying to convince people, like, I have this idea and this thing, and it had never really been done before. And then I remember him talking about Stand By Me and how he movie, but it related to something in his childhood. And he was really just celebrating something in his childhood that he felt like he could communicate and connect with. And I think, to me, when I think about like these artists who really, they're like in this timeless kind of art, or they're a part of that, or they create it, or they just participate in it. It's something that they had an internal like life connection to. And I think the celebration thing you're talking about, it has a lot of parallels to that, because that's kind of why you do art. You're celebrating the struggle, or you're celebrating a time in your life, or you're celebrating an experience, and you're sharing it. And it's just really, really beautiful when you stop to take a moment and consider, what are we doing here? I mean, even to make music with your friend, like I was doing with Ash, it's like, what a great celebration of just hanging out and creating together. You know, you and I doing a script, whatever it might be. And like, I look back in my life and I'm like, these are going to be probably the moments that are some of the most important moments in my life. And at the time, we're just doing them. They weren't really,
Yeah.
I wasn't there going like, this is going to be the most important moment of my life. But now in hindsight, looking back, I'm like, wow, like I wouldn't trade those for anything.
Hey, it's Evan with a quick public service announcement. If you're enjoying the conversation you're hearing and finding it helpful, then please help us and take a second to subscribe to the podcast. And we can all be people helping other people, and that's awesome. Now back to the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, you said so many great things there. Something that I can't remember which part of it that you were talking about that sparked something for me, but it was, one of the beautiful things about having some sort of art. And look, we always kind of, just because we are who we are, we kind of cover a lot of the same art forms over and over again. Like, but there's so many different ones that we usually don't mention in the midst of a conversation. Like, things I've been thinking about is like, oh, well, like baking and cooking and stuff like that's an art too. Like, there's so many other places, woodworking, like there's just tons of stuff. So it's finding some kind of art, but every art, when you really spend time with it, and really throw yourself into it, one thing that they all do is that they all teach you. They all teach you. They all teach you a lot of really deep, profound lessons. And in many ways, when you get into an art form, it's a relationship. That's the best way that, in my own experience, I can sort of describe it. It's like you have a relationship with this thing that you're doing that feels very personal. At least it does for me. It feels like a very personal thing. And it's teaching you things, and it's a lifelong teacher as well. I think that's one of the beautiful things about art is it's not, there's no we talk about this a lot about just in terms of life, like there's no arrival point. Well, art's kind of beautiful like that too, because art is like life in that way. Art is life, in probably every respect, but it is constantly, it's constantly teaching you. It's constantly got something new to share. There's never a point in, no matter how long you've been doing an art, no matter if you are considered a master in what you do, it's really just to say that you have a very strong and healthy relationship with that thing that you're doing, but you're still learning from it. You're a master because in many ways it has made you humble. There's a humility that comes with master artists. Usually, I think. I mean, I guess there's maybe some pretty egotistical people who make it through there, but for the most part, masters have kind of had so many lessons handed to them through what they're doing. I know that, like, certainly acting has done that for me. Like, it teaches, art forms teach you lessons in patience. It teaches you lessons in, letting go of yourself, like we were talking about last week, like, about your ego and identity, and, all of, it has a lot that it can show us about who we are in that respect, and it never stops. And that's, I think, just another reason why having an art that you do in your life is important.
Someone I met, who actually is going to probably come on the podcast, he was telling me about how he never understood Picasso, and how he looked at it and he's like, what is this jumble? Like, this image? Like, I don't get this. I don't understand why anybody cares or why this is even relevant. And he said that, maybe he'll go more into this if we get him on, but he was talking about how, like, I understood it when my kid came home with a piece of art, and it was kind of this little bit like a jumbled thing. And he began to realize, like, in that moment, that when his kid was creating art, he was expressing the way he saw it. He was taking something that made sense to him on the inside, and I didn't see the particular picture, but the way he described it sounded so profound. And his kid's like 8 years old. Mm-hmm. This is like, this little 8-year-old is really just dialed in, because he wasn't trying to make the perfect picture. He was expressing an image of something based on how he thought, and how he found that this should be structured and put together. And yeah, it wasn't a model image of what had happened, but it had like an authenticity. And then he said that once he had this experience through his kid creating art, he's like, I get it now. Like, art is not just about trying to model something and trying to copy it and trying to make a perfect image of it, or, trying to make it this perfect, pristine thing. It's about taking what's inside of you and sharing that, and having a real authentic thing. Like, you're not doing it to try and, like, I know this will be a great idea, this will really get people thinking. It's like, it's actually denying the right way to do it, and instead letting yourself have a truth, like a true way of doing it. And that art, when you think about it, that's the kind of art that's memorable. That's the kind of art that's like unforgettable. I had a similar experience with Picasso, because, and I'm sure many people do, and they might even still be there, where like, I don't get it. I don't get Picasso. But here's the thing. I'll tell you this interesting thing about Picasso is that when you see a Picasso painting, you almost don't forget it. Yeah. But I've seen so many paintings that are like these incredibly like spot on perfect images of, like, a human face, for example. And I honestly don't, like, they're like a blur. But then a Picasso is like, it has a certain element to it, which is like, this is so one of a kind. It's so unique in its expression. And so, like, I think, like, something that I really kind of want to encouraging myself, and I suppose encouraging our listeners, is like, what if you let go of the boundaries? What if you let go of what's right and wrong? What if you opened up to truth? And by truth, I don't mean like an explicit truth that everyone agrees on, but your truth, you know, your true sense of expression and emotion. And what if that was something that doesn't even make sense to you right now? And the only way you're ever going to stumble upon it is if you venture inside and let the inside come out onto the canvas, or into the song, or in through the movie. And I think that as I kind of mature and get, I just grow up as an artist, something that I've begun to realize is like, art is so much more than I ever thought it was, and so much simpler than I ever thought it was as well, all at the same time. Because I think my very early version of artistic expression was just kind of like under this guise of like, there's a right and wrong way to do it. There's a bad, a good, and a better, and a best way of doing it. And I think all of those are actually, like, in art, defies all of that. It actually, it's so subjective and so experiential and it's so timely. Like, a movie or a painting or a song you love at one moment might not be the same song you just love at another. And that's kind of what art is. It doesn't always have to be the best, the right, the greatest. It can be the greatest in a moment, and then it can kind of go away. And then you can come back to it at another spot in your life, and you're like, oh, I love this song, this movie, this painting. But like, there could have been a huge gap in between where it wasn't really relevant and didn't really matter. And yet you can have these bottle cap moments, and even more moments beyond that, where all of a sudden it's this great thing all over again. So, I think this kind of like finding your way back to art could be like, maybe you watched a movie when you were younger, forgot all about it, come back to it, and then you come back to it and you're like, wow, I'm seeing this movie all over again with new eyes, and it's all of a sudden magical to me all over again. And I'm just using a movie. It could be a song, could be a painting, could be who knows what, right? And I think this is kind of where the appreciation element you brought in. We brought in some interesting ones. The law of kind of the law of process. Like, we brought so many laws into this conversation. It's just such a fascinating thing to me, because this conversation in and of itself is celebrating coming back to art.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay, well, look, beer. Let's just have a beer moment.
All right, yeah, let's do it. It seems like that's the air has seems to be calling for it.
Sometimes there's nothing to say. You just got to let it be.
All right. I'll go first.
Okay.
I'll talk about this. I'm drinking a beer called Subnautica from Parallel 49. I don't know if you can see that. It's got like a little scuba man on it, and it's a Citra wit beer. It's a Citra wit beer, and it's good. It's good. It's got a nice sort of flavor, nice wit beer kind of vibe to it, and very easy to drink, and it's a winner. It's a winner.
Winners are good. I'm having a nice Canadian beer from Jasper Brewing Co. And I'm traveling through Alberta right now, venturing through the province and seeing some things that I've never seen before. And it's been really beautiful and amazing. Anyway, I go to Jasper. I'm going to go hang out there in a few days, but I decided that I would get one of theirs. This is a crisp Pilsner. It's called the Crisp Pils. And it's, kind of a classic little can there. Yeah, it's great. It's really nice. It's a really nice. I don't really have a lot to say other than, it's a good Pilsner. And I just kind of thought, hey, you know what? I'll pick it up. And it's one that I've never had before, which is always nice. And it's always nice to be traveling through somewhere and to be able to kind of I think one of the things I always love about, this whole podcast and all these conversations is that we've always kind of taken a moment to celebrate craft brew. It's kind of something we've been doing, the art of it. And it's nice to go to these different breweries and you have a very like standardized kind of beer, a Pilsner, but then it's all new again, because it's a new craft. It's a new version of it. It's a little tweak, and this, it's just something that I'm taking a moment now to like appreciate, it's like, and there's so many different expressions of beer, and
Yeah.
equally all good in their own way, but equally all different in their own way too.
Yeah. All right. So what have we, we've been talking about, I feel like we've been making a lot of different cases for why, getting back to an art if you've been neglecting it, or, if you're a person who, hasn't really been involved in art. I think that we're, hopefully making a good case for, looking into trying something out. What more, can we cover in this? Like there's all the useful things that this serves, all of the, there's sort of benefits to being in an art and being involved with one. So what else we got to say about this, Brandon?
Like something I've been thinking about a lot is I feel like, we take life too serious. I think that people take life too serious when they don't have, this is my opinion. People take life too serious when they don't have a connection to something more, when they don't have passion and purpose, and when they don't have a sense of self that is beyond productivity and beyond survival and beyond just doing their job. And like, I want to scream from the fucking hilltops. You're not a machine. You're not a robot. You're not something that is an automated thing. You are a expression, and it's absolutely unique through every human being. And you might not think that anything is special about you, but like I'm calling out to our audience. I'm saying, listen, you listening, not the other guy, not your friend, them too, but that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking to you. You have something inside of you that is absolutely one of a kind, and you do yourself a disservice by neglecting it. And it sends chills through my spine because I just think people need to hear that. I think they need to wake the fuck up and realize that you are not meant to be a carbon copy of everyone else, and you're not meant to do as others do. You're meant to do as you do. You're meant to have your own thoughts. You're meant to think critically. And I don't care what school taught you. I don't care what everyone else is doing. What I care about is what you do and what you want to do and what's in your heart. And I don't care if people don't like it. And I don't care if they don't like you, and you shouldn't either, because it doesn't fucking matter. What matters is that it's your life right now. And you have the freedom to express it. And don't let anybody ever tell you that you have to do it the way someone else does. Do it your way. And if that means like, it fucking sends chills through my spine because this is your life, and don't give it up. Do not give it up for anything, and don't give it up to be fucking liked. Let that go. Let it go today, this moment, this instant. I want you to go on your Facebook profile and you take that little fucking like button at the bottom corner and you say, I do not give a shit whether someone likes this, hates this, cries at this, or whatever their fucking thing is in relation to me. It does not matter, because this is my life and I'm doing what I feel I need to do. And I think an artist, it takes fucking massive courage to do that. It takes massive courage, and to realize that you're free, that you are free to express yourself, and that, yes, we all go through school, and yes, a lot of us get bullied, and some of us are the bullies. And if you've been the bully, back the fuck off. And if you've been bullied, stand up, because your art and your life it's not just your art, it's your expression, it's your celebration of you, it's your celebration of all of us. And you know what? The underdog, the person that doesn't think they can do it, the person that doesn't think they matter, I'm talking to you especially because you need to hear it more than ever, in my opinion, that you are not nothing. You are out there and you are doing something. And even if you feel like you haven't found it yet, you haven't done it yet, it's never too late. Because if you're hearing this right now, it can all start today. It could all turn. Your whole thing can turn around. And I see a lot of people, and I see a lot of man, I'm on a soapbox here, but I see a lot of people, and they're depressed and they're discouraged and they're scared and they're anxious. And I'm just like, you know what? You know what the answer to that? Self-expression, attention, putting your energy into your art, putting your energy into your hobby, putting your energy into play, like if the ship's going down, fucking dance on the bow. You know what I mean? Like, let's enjoy the fucking ride. Because this is life, and this is what gives people courage. When you see children play and you think about them not being able to express themselves, not being able to play, not being able to have fun, not being able to connect with each other, to me that fucking bothers me. It boils my fucking blood. And I don't want to rob children of childhood. I don't want to rob adults of childhood. I don't want people to get robbed of their art and their expression. And man, I guess this has been under the surface a lot recently because I know what it's like to be depressed. I know what it's like to go through a hard time. I know what it's like to look into the bleak fucking darkness and not see anything in the future and not know how you're going to get through it. And I can tell you that you're going to find out that when you're in the darkest moment of your life, you're the fucking light. So light the fuck up, find out whatever that is that lights you up and light this fucking dark world up because it's on you. And it's on me and it's on all of us. We got to light the fuck up. We got to be individuals. We got to figure out what makes us passionate, what makes us fucking want to play, want to connect, want to do this stuff. We're not meant to be separate little things that are against each other, fighting about right and wrong and all this bullshit. We're meant to connect. We're meant to work together. We're meant to create together. And we're meant to celebrate life, as you put it, Evan. We are meant to be here to create together. This is on all of us to light the fuck up. So, you know what? We did start this as kind of a PSA, like go back to your art. And I'm not telling anybody what's right or wrong, but I'm telling you that your spirit and my spirit, these things matter. And we need to start cherishing them and celebrating them. And we need to embrace the fact that we all have them. And if you don't want to participate, then that's fine. But those of you that do, I don't want you to think that you are somehow excluded because you're in this and you matter and it does matter. And you're going to find out if you just take a step into it, you're going to find out that it does, and maybe if you take one, you'll take two. And if you take two, you'll take a few more. And then who knows where you'll be pretty soon. So just go for it because fucking you never know. You just never know how short this life might be. And you might as well fucking celebrate every last little ounce of it. It matters. So, Evan, I'm sure you have some other thoughts and don't feel like you need to say anything on that. But look, we got him, man. Like life is not robotic. It just is not.
Yeah. And, yeah, man, like there's I was considering for a second just being like, I think I might just hit the stop button right after that. Cause I don't know how to follow that, man. Like other than with like an aim, then an amen.
It doesn't matter. Cause it doesn't matter about following it. Like this is something like I relate to that. Cause sometimes you'll say something like, I don't know what else to say. You end a podcast and you said something really profound or whatever, passionate. But it's like, it doesn't matter because the thing is what we all need to see is that we don't have to be better than each other. We don't have to top anything. We don't have to even match it. We just have to be true to ourselves, And I mean, like, I don't know,
sometimes
man.
It's a case of like, I don't know if anything more needs to be said beyond that, sometimes there's something to be said for being like, okay, like it has been said. It has been like, and me to add one more brush stroke to this would be one brush stroke too many, but I guess we're not done because here we are, we're still talking.
Well, maybe there's something in that. I think you raise a good point. Sometimes you don't need another brushstroke, and you know, I think sometimes it is just about stopping and going, okay, like I do appreciate that side of it. That it's enough. There doesn't need to be any more. Like this can be as it is, at least for now. I think something with scripts that I've realized, or screenplays, is like you write a script and then you get to a point where you finish it, and then maybe you do a few drafts and you don't really know what else to do, and you just let it sit there for a little while. You let it breathe, you let it have some time, and then you can, but sometimes you can only bring something so far at a certain point. I mean, I'm sure that this conversation that we've had, like, I feel like, honestly, and I don't mean to be kind of arrogant or somehow prideful or egotistical about what I just said, but I do feel like what I just said was a really important moment for me and for us, because I do feel like it was one of those things that's going to help us put a building block towards everything we're trying to do with this podcast, and I don't think it was too far off from anything that you're thinking about, or really the way you see the world. But, sometimes I think the great thing about these conversations is we have a moment to say some of the stuff out loud and share it and communicate it. And I think what was kind of interesting for me was when I was sharing that, it was so deeply in my truth that it lit my body up in a way that I remember feeling when I was a kid, where it was just like, let's fucking do this shit. Let's go for it. Let's play the game. Let's do the thing. And just, like playing sports. And it's like, let's score the goal. Let's win the game. It's just this like aliveness that I just like tapped into for a moment. And at the very least for me, it reminds me like, that's what I'm after. That's what reminds me why life is such a gift. Why it's so cherished, and I think about those dark moments that I went to where I almost felt like so empty that I just didn't even know if I wanted to continue on. And I think, man, was that guy disconnected from that feeling? Because that feeling, that guy just, when I'm tapped into that, like, that's just like, it's beyond courage. It's like life force is just like oozing through my body. Like I was, and I'm still to some degree right now, I'm like vibrating with life inside of me. And I think also, like, I'll just say this because I don't want to keep going, but as I say that to other people, I always remind myself, I'm also saying that to myself. These are exactly the things that I want to tell myself now, and even my younger self and my older self. These are the things, and I'm so glad these conversations get recorded, because there's something that I can go back to and be like, I need to listen to that part again. I need to listen to that because that's what I need right now. And it's recorded and it's there and I have it. And sometimes there's nothing more powerful than hearing your younger self tell you,
yeah,
and remind you like, oh yeah, that guy at that moment, at least he had it. He knew what he was talking about.
Well, it was somewhere around the 47th minute there, Brandon.
Okay, well,
somewhere
thanks.
around the 47th minute. I've sort of been able to like collect myself from everything that you had to say, and sort of distill some things down, and what I took from what you said, and really what I hear you saying, and maybe it wasn't really what you were saying, but here's how I took it, which is that it means something, and it's important, and it's something that we need to give space to in our lives, because art is always one of the things that it always takes the back seat in our education system. And then, in our lives, it's like, it's this, it's like, oh, it's this frivolous luxury is how it's treated. And it's like, yeah, you know what? Like, it doesn't put food in your stomach and it doesn't put a roof over your head necessarily, you know, like for most people, but it is still a fucking matter of life and death. Art is always in the business of life and death. It just deals with life and death in a different way. It deals with the life and death of our humanity. It deals with the life and death of our souls, as you would say. That, like, how can you neglect that? How can we neglect that? You know, it's life and death of the truest parts of ourselves. You know, it's about great art, you know, like for me, and this is often, you know, music speaks to me probably more than any other thing in this way, but like sometimes there's just a song and it just reaches into my guts, you know, like it just somehow, like through the way that this has been put together and the way that this was created, it just reaches into me and it just pulls everything. It pulls on everything and that's what I'm talking about. That's what I think we're talking about is that shit that reaches into you and makes you feel fucking something. It makes you feel some kind of life that's more real than the normal bullshit that we do that we call life. That's what art reaches into. That's what art is trying to access in each and every single one of us. It's where we find some way to talk about it. And, you know, someone who, I won't get this correct again as usual, but like, you know, I've said this on the podcast before. It's a quote from Frederick Buechner, but basically, you know, he said that like in a world that very much steers clear of talking about anything holy, art is one of the few places where we can still speak of holy things. I don't mean that in a religious way. I mean it in the way that we've been talking about it here. It's like what is the raw truth of who we are? What is that thing? It's important and it means something. Coming back to what I was getting from, you know, your soapbox speech, which was fantastic. It was absolutely wonderful. But it's important. It means something. I'm simply just trying to illustrate why the fuck that thing is important. Why that thing is like something that's like, don't take it lightly. Don't take it passively. If you're not creating, you're just dying and you're destroying. Create. Take as many opportunities as you can to do that. Thank you for listening in on our conversation today. We hope you found something helpful that you can carry forward with you. Head over to our website, wayoftheartist.com, for more free exclusive material and learn about the show. If you haven't already, please support us by subscribing to the show, sharing it with people you know, and keeping compassionate, creative conversation going.